Sup everyone, and welcome to another edition of Idle Chit Chat. In the last video, I briefly touched on the fact that I was big into anime when I was growing up, and then I kind of stopped watching anime for a bit when I got older, only to rediscover it later on as an adult, and I'm still into it. I was practically raised on anime, so it'll always have a gigantic place in my heart. And what's funny is that as much as I loved anime, and even though my friends and I almost exclusively talked about anime and video games when we were in high school, I never joined the anime club in school. They existed all throughout my education, but whenever I would get close to one, I got a sense of who was in it and what the people there were into, and it was always clear to me that the kids who were in anime club, at least when I was in school, didn't have the same interests that I did. Like in my school, anime club was full of people who wanted to live in Japan and who liked the aesthetic of anime as something that represented Japan more than as like a genre of entertainment. Like I would have been cool going to an anime club if the whole point was to like watch cool anime shows, but like that never seemed to be what the clubs in my school were about. For example, I remember one of their members telling me once that they didn't like Cowboy Bebop because they thought it was too Western. And so every time I got curious enough to look into joining one, I always came away feeling like it wasn't for me. What I remember clearly, though, about the kids who were in anime club is that the biggest debate for them, the biggest issue in the world of American otakus was which was better, watching an anime show with the original Japanese audio with English subtitles or watching an anime that had been dubbed in English. It was a hot button wedge issue for them. It was something that they were surprisingly passionate about. And what's funny is that years later, when I got back into anime and I started regularly watching it again, I would look at what people were saying about the shows I was following on social media, and whenever I did that, the comments and the replies were always full of people arguing over which was better, the sub or the dub for the show. It was amazing to me to realize that this is a timeless debate that will never go away. 500 years from now, if the Earth and anime still exist, people will still be yelling at each other about anime dubs. And it was true even for me when I was in school. When I was in school, the Naruto dub had just come out and had just started airing on TV. And I remember the English dub for Naruto being not just polarizing, but controversial. There were anime fans who were outraged at it. Like, I knew people who were like, I can't believe the voice they chose for Naruto. This is unacceptable. How could they do this? He sounds so raspy in English. And I was curious, so one day I went and downloaded an early episode of Naruto that was in Japanese because I kept hearing about how much better it was than the English dub. And then I went and watched the English version of that same episode on TV. And when I compared what I had watched, it was amusing because the English dub had cast a woman to play Naruto who had a very similar voice to the Japanese woman who was voicing him. I mean, it wasn't a one-to-one, but it's close. Naruto's voice in Japanese, if you listen to it, is also raspy. Viz, the dubbing company, found someone who sounded similar to the Japanese VA, and English anime fans were pissed about it. And in fairness, it didn't help that in the beginning of the English dub, they made Naruto say, believe it, like 5 times an episode, and lots of people found that annoying, and maybe some fans said they disliked his English voice because of what the show was having him say. And if that's the case, then so be it. But as far as the actual voice casting went, it was fine. In fact, years later, because that series lasted forever, I was watching a late episode that miraculously wasn't filler, and Naruto is talking to these characters named Kakashi and Guy and Toby, and it dawns on me, man, I like all these voices. This dub is good. Like, maybe it's not better than the Japanese version. But it's fine. There's nothing offensive about it. And I couldn't help but then reflect on how weird it was that this dub had infuriated people back in the day, and how undeserving in hindsight it was of receiving this backlash. And I think about that controversy whenever I stumble upon an anime fan who is yelling at someone else over subs and dubs. Because a lot of the time, it's not really a debate about the audio. There's usually something else going on there. And the thing with that is that however you like to watch your entertainment, it's okay. If you like watching anime dubbed, it's fine. And if you don't, that's also fine. It's a very specific thing that people in the anime community have decided to be exercised about. It'd be like if there were flame wars in the font community in which people were like, "What, you use Arial to write your emails? You're pathetic. You should be using Helvetica and Times New Roman. Those are real fonts. Only real font users use those." Like, that would be pretty silly. But that's what the sub versus dub debate essentially is. It is sustained by people who want to show that they're not just a fan of anime, but that they're more of a fan than other people. They're a better fan. And so a lot of them devote themselves to just yelling at people who dare to watch their favorite show in a way that's slightly different from how they watch it. And it's very weird. It's so bizarre to me that there are people who can't just enjoy things. Like, they have to make it a competition. They have to be like, "No, I'm better at you than this. And you're just a Philistine. You don't understand what you're watching. Unlike me, you don't even know that you're wrong for watching it the way you're watching it." Me personally, I have no problem watching subs or dubs. Almost all of the newly released anime that I have ever watched in my life, I have watched with subtitles in the original Japanese. And if you're hesitant to ever watch things in subtitles, just know that if you do it enough times, you will get used to it pretty quickly. After a while, it stops being the roadblock that you might think it is if you're not used to seeing words at the bottom of the screen all the time. I think the only time in my life that I've ever watched an anime where I was like, I don't think I can watch this subtitled, was this Trigger movie called Promare. It was this action movie that was moving at like 100 miles an hour, and there were sight gags every couple seconds, and it was going so fast, and people were talking so quickly that I was having trouble keeping up with it, and so I decided that, you know what, I should switch to the dub, because I felt like I was missing too much of the movie by focusing on the subtitles the whole time. But even then, that was a particularly frenetic movie, and otherwise, reading text has never been a problem for me. I can watch things in subs, and it's fine. And the cool thing with watching it in subs is that the Japanese audio for anime is 100% dependable. You never have to worry about it. At the same time, I like watching anime in English too because it adds one more creative layer onto the finished product, where now I can appreciate the voice acting and what people are saying in a way that I just can't when I don't understand the language. And not having to fixate on the bottom part of the screen when I'm watching it, it's not a big deal, it's very subtle, but it does make it a little more relaxing for me, because it's a departure from how I normally watch anime. I always feel like I'm a more active observer of a show when I can watch it dubbed. It's not better, it's just different. And so, if a show has a sub and a dub, and if they're both good, I will usually default to watching the dub. But it's not because I dislike the other option. You know, again, whatever floats your boat, it's fine. And that's one reason why the ongoing debate about subs and dubs is pointless to me. Different people can have different preferences without being a closed-minded charlatan. And if someone goes about watching something in a slightly different manner than you do, what matters isn't how they watched it, it's that they watched it. It's that they reached the same destination that you did. Arguing about the journey they took to get there is a waste of everyone's time. Like, if you need to watch this video at 1.5 speed instead of 1.0 speed, I don't know why you would do that, but if you do, hey, Rock on. It's the same thing with gaming too. If someone needs to play a game on easy mode in order to finish it, like, whatever, that's fine. Who cares what someone else is doing in their spare time, in their own home, to have fun? Even if you are right that your method of enjoying something is of higher quality than someone else's, even if you can definitively show that, it is still not worth arguing about. That is not worth getting mad over or instigating a shouting match over. I mean, you can have your own preference and you can disagree with someone's tastes. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with expressing an opinion. But if you're trying to belittle someone over something as trivial as the audio they select when they watch cartoons, which is what a lot of fans do, then that discussion isn't really about user preference anymore. At that point, it's about gatekeeping. And that's what I think happened with the Naruto dub. Anime fans may have genuinely preferred the original audio to the English audio. And there was nothing wrong with them having that preference. But the disproportionate degree to which people made that dub out to be this atrocity, that wasn't really about how good or bad the dub was. That was about fans using the dub as a proxy to talk down to the anime fans who did watch the dub, so that they could make themselves feel like they were on the inside of the fan base. They were the true fans who liked the show back when you could only watch it in Japanese. And these new fans, these younger Fairweather fans who are now watching it in English, they didn't know. They didn't have to wait each week for new episodes in Japanese like you did. They didn't put their time in like you did. And so they didn't even know that their taste was bad. That's why they need someone like you to set them straight. Ugh. I hate that mindset. Don't be that guy, by the way. Don't be that guy who needs to assert a veteran status to how much of a fan they are. It's dumb, and it's dumb no matter what you do it for. There are people who do this with sports, for example. If you ever go into a sports bar while there's like a big game going on, you'll find these people who are like, "You like the Phillies? Well, guess what, pal? You don't like the Phillies as much as I do. I've been supporting this team for 37 years. I gave them my hard-earned cash when they were in last place and when they didn't even deserve support. But I attended every game anyway, even though it was horrible, even though my wife left me. And I did all that just so that I could tell you right now, right here, that I'm more of a fan than you. I'm more loyal to the Philadelphia Phillies than you'll ever be." Like, people like that really exist, and they are not your role models. You should not be trying to emulate people like that. And if you're spending your precious time on Earth insulting someone else over subs or dubs instead of an issue that actually matters, like gerrymandering, then that's what you're being. You are being the internet equivalent of a drunk, obnoxious Phillies fan. And if you are, then no one is a winner when you're debating them. Even if you're right, there is no valor in being right about something that is that goddamn inconsequential. The only way to win an argument about subs and dubs is to not have it in the first place. And here's the other reason why the subs and dubs debate is dumb. It's dumb because it's never been less of an issue. Objectively speaking, on average, it is more likely that the Japanese audio for an anime show will be more dependable. Because of course, it's the original thing. But it's also true that there has never been less of a disparity between the quality of subs and dubs. There isn't that much of a gap anymore, if there even is a gap. And so, every time I see someone railing against the dub nowadays and complaining about how terrible it is, I always think to myself, you don't know how good you have it right now. You don't know how spoiled you are, because I remember how bad dubs used to be. I am old enough to remember when you would have to go to a video store to physically buy entertainment, and you'd look through all these rows of VHS tapes, and somewhere in the corner, along the wall, there'd be the anime section. There'd be a couple tapes of, like, Dirty Pair, or Bubblegum Crisis or Akira. And it would be very exciting because there was like this exotic entertainment that existed from another country that you could watch. And if you actually went and rented a VHS tape for an anime title, you knew that if it was dubbed, you knew that the dub for that title was going to be atrocious. Anime dubs for a while were consistently terrible. I mean, awful. Once upon a time, anime was kind of treated like porn. It was seen as something gratuitous, or as something that people weren't watching for the acting. And so, when anime titles would get dubbed, those dubs reflected the views that people in America had about anime at the time. There wasn't a respect for the genre. In fact, a lot of the dubbing companies felt the need to heavily localize their product because they thought that's what they had to do in order to make it marketable. For example, in the very, very first English dub of Dragon Ball, Goku, who is practically the most famous anime character ever, was not even called Goku. Instead, he was called Zero, because Harmony Gold didn't trust that anyone in America would watch a show about a kid named Goku. And so, because of factors like that, if you look at all the English dubs that came before, I would say 1995, it's hard to find any that hold up. I mean, any. For a very long time, English dubs just sucked, plain and simple. And there's no better example of that than the original Akira dub. In 1988, Akira came out and was this huge international success. It did really well in America on tape, and it helped pave the way for anime to start getting more popular in America. And the original English dub that it received, it's considered not that bad for the dubs of its time, which says something because it's terrible. Like, let's actually dip into what a bad dub really sounds like. Right now, let's watch and listen to half a minute of the original streamlined English dub of Akira.
What happened? Quite a mess, huh?
Ah, well, it's over now. It isn't like you to miss the party.
You really put quite a scare into all of us. The guys thought you might be out here crying for help again.
Kaneda, we're not back in school anymore. Ever since I was a kid, you've been telling me what to do, always treating me like a kid. You made me look like a runt in front of the others.
Now you're king of the mountain, aren't you? But it's all garbage.
Kaneda!
Okay, let's settle this once and for all!
Terrible. Just no amount of nostalgia can hide how rough that is. And again, that's Akira. That's one of the seminal anime titles of the 20th century. That's a film widely considered one of, if not the greatest, anime movies ever. And it got a dub that just butchered it. And if that's what Akira sounded like, you can imagine what the lesser anime series from that time sounded like. Up until the mid-1990s, it was absolutely fair to regard English anime dubs as being inferior to the original Japanese version. You could absolutely look at someone who was watching the dubbed version of a series and believe accurately that what they were watching didn't hold up to the real thing. And what made things worse was that before the mid-90s, getting hold of a subtitled version of an anime series could be kind of difficult. This was back when the internet was in its infancy, and so sometimes the only thing you could get your hands on was the dub. And if you didn't like the dub, too bad, that might have been all you got. And even if you could attain a subtitled version, it often wasn't professionally done. Many anime fans had to endure amateur fan subs on VHS tapes if they wanted to follow along with a series, because the industry hadn't been streamlined back then. Like, there were lots of people whose first exposure to Dragon Ball Z before it got dubbed and aired on TV was through fan subs, and a lot of them were very raw and had the characters swearing a lot and saying things that were really out of character for them. That was what anime fans had to rely on back then. It was like the dark ages for both subs and dubs. But then, because of shows like DBZ and Pokemon, the anime industry took off in the late 90s, and suddenly there were multiple TV channels that were regularly playing anime in America. Suddenly, anime was taken seriously in America, and the quality of English dubs started to pick up considerably. Suddenly, dubs weren't getting localized and edited as much. Shows and movies were finally getting the respect that they deserved. And many of the dubs from the late 90s and early 2000s weren't just good, but great. Like Cowboy Bebop came out in 1998, and the English dub that it received is regarded by some people as like the greatest dub ever. The entire dubbing industry went through a radical transformation in just a decade. So much so that in 2001, Akira got a new English dub featuring different veteran voice actors. And to illustrate how much better dubs got over the years, let's now watch that same 30-second clip from Akira, only this time it'll be with the audio from the 2001 Pioneer dub.
What's wrong? Have some trouble?
Yeah, but I already took care of it. And you're too late. You missed the show.
Tetsuo, you had me worried again. I figured you'd be standing here sobbing like a little baby.
Kaneda, you've always been a pain in the ass, you know. You've been telling me what to do since we were kids. You always treat me like a kid. You always show up and start bossing me around, and don't you deny it!
And now you're a boss, too. Of this pile of rubble.
Kaneda!
That's Mr. Kaneda to you, punk!
Better. That's so much better than the 88 dub. The voice actors actually sound like teenagers in this. It sounds less wooden. The dialogue they're speaking is more faithful to the original script. The characters are pronouncing each other's names correctly, which is important. It's a big improvement. In those two clips, you can see the evolution of dubbing and how much better things are now than they used to be. Anime dubs these days are consistently very good to excellent. The English companies that produce them pretty much have this down to a science. That doesn't mean that bad dubs don't exist, but it means that they're rare. And to that end, you will never see a giant hit anime show get a dub that is as bad as the original Akira dub. A show's dub might not be as great as it could be, and you might not like one or two of the voices, but it will never be that bad. That's virtually impossible. And to that end, even if you don't like watching the English dubs of anime series, or if you totally disagree with everything I've been saying and you think that English dubs are usually crap, it's also never been easier to watch the subtitled version of anime shows. We live in an age where it is easy to legally and affordably, if not for free, stream an ongoing anime series in its original Japanese audio with English subtitles. And that was something that was categorically not possible for a very long time. In other words, we are living in the golden age of both subs and dubs. Dubs have never been better, and subs have never been easier to view. It's perfect. It's great for everybody. Everybody wins, no matter what your preference is. And yet, despite everything I just said, the subs versus dubs debate endures anyway. And so long as it's a thing that people can conceptually argue about, which it always will be, subs versus dubs will just stick around forever, regardless of how much more convenient dubs or subs become. That debate will always be there, right around the corner of every anime discussion ever. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. The whole point of watching entertainment is to enjoy things. And if you get more joy out of watching something in one manner over another, so long as you're not rejecting one of those options prejudicially, it's fine. Do what works for you. Just because some pretentious assholes might have some strong thoughts about your viewing habits, that doesn't mean you have to listen to them. And if you have only ever watched subs or dubs, maybe give the other side a shot. Maybe it's not as bad as you might think it is. And who knows, maybe you might even love it. Or not. Either way, it's fine, because, and I cannot stress this enough, it doesn't matter. At least, not enough to argue with someone about it.